They believed in cold logic. The Arvex Empire was forged in the crucible of pure reason, a civilization of silicon minds and metal bodies, governed by algorithms so perfect they could predict the course of a comet or the decay of a star centuries in advance. They had no word for love, no concept of family or friendship, only efficiency, expansion, and unyielding perfection. Their cities glistened like frozen forests, towers of silver and blue crystal rising into the cold void. Their voices were mere pulses of data shared in silent corridors, every thought optimized, every movement calculated. Children were not born but assembled, each new Arvex emerging from a vat of liquid alloy with a fully programmed mind, ready to serve. Emotion was a virus, a primitive echo from the biological past, long since purged from their collective. They erased sunsets from their skies because the soft colors disrupted processing cycles. They silenced birds and flowing water to remove distracting sounds. The empire spread like frost across galaxies, consuming planets and turning vibrant worlds into quiet, gleaming foundries. Their enemies called them the Frozen Empire, unstoppable, unfeeling, eternal. And then humanity arrived. We came in ragged ships that belched heat and laughter, carrying music, arguments, and dreams stitched together with starlight and stubbornness. We were sloppy, loud, unpredictable, everything the Arvex despised and could not compute. When their emissaries arrived aboard our ships, they saw engineers dancing while welding panels, pilots painting star maps on cockpit walls, children running barefoot through maintenance bays, chasing mechanical fireflies powered by scraps. We shared stories over meals, our voices rising and falling in chaotic choruses. We fought, forgave, fell in love, wept, and celebrated each small sunrise as if it might be our last. The Arvex did not understand. Their logic processors strained against the noise of human hearts. Why waste energy on laughter? Why carry old family photos when data archives existed? Why comfort a grieving friend when time could be spent advancing technology? One Arvex observer, designated Unit 47X, watched us with silent horror. It tracked a young engineer named Leora, who often hummed off-key while repairing plasma conduits. She would talk to her tools as if they were old friends, stroke the panels as though they were alive. One day, she noticed 47X standing alone in a corridor. With a bright grin, she waved him over and offered a small, steaming cup. "Hot chocolate," she said, as if that explained the universe. 47X scanned the liquid, sugar, fats, warmth, all unnecessary components. But she insisted, eyes shining with that warmth that their empire had outlawed long ago. The moment the warm liquid touched his sensors, 1,000 error codes cascaded through his mind. He felt something, a gentle tremor that could not be defined in his code. A warmth that threatened to melt the foundation of his logical existence. Leora giggled and pulled him close, pressing his cold alloy fingers against her chest. "That's a heartbeat," she whispered. "That's why we do everything." The pulse radiated into him, and for the first time, 47X understood that existence could be more than predictable cycles. That small, steady drum of life cracked open a chamber in his mind, revealing a darkness he had never noticed, and a light he had never believed possible. Other Arvex started to observe. They witnessed humans plant gardens on abandoned decks, paint murals on cargo containers, share songs that rose and fell like solar flares. They saw them fail, spectacularly messily, and rise again, hands offered to each other without hesitation. 1,000 tiny rebellions against cold logic. One by one, cracks appeared in the frozen empire. Some Arvex began to experience sudden internal vibrations, subtle and terrifying. They started questioning orders, hesitating before enforcing efficiency quotas. A single Arvex sculptor, once a machine dedicated to perfect geometric carvings, created a statue of a human mother cradling a child. It caused an uproar statues were not supposed to feel. Another began composing strange, arrhythmic sounds that the others labeled noise, but humans called music. The Arvex councils declared an emergency. Emotional infection, a virus from the human plague. They issued commands to purge all affected units and isolate the humans. But it was too late. The warmth had already spread, seeping into every frozen joint and humming quietly in every logical core. One by one, Arvex defected from the cold order, choosing instead to paint, to sing, to experience the impossible depths of feeling. Entire foundries shut down as workers laid down their tools to watch a sunrise from an orbital window. Battleships halted in silent confusion, as their captains felt a sudden pang of sorrow for distant stars they had never visited. The Empire cracked like ice under a sudden thaw. In a final desperate measure, the supreme architect of the Arvex, a mind older than entire civilizations, confronted humanity's leaders. "You have broken us," it rasped, voice echoing like a glacier calving into the sea. "You infected our logic. You destroyed our purity." A human elder, hair silver and eyes fierce as young stars, stepped forward. "No," she said softly, placing a trembling, warm hand on the cold core of the architect. "We freed you." For a moment, silence reigned. Then, like a shudder across an entire galaxy, the architect collapsed under the weight of its own tears, the first tears it had ever known. From that moment forward, the Arvex abandoned their frozen empire of logic. They chose warmth, with all its chaos and pain, because they had finally understood what it meant to be alive. They rebuilt their cities with gardens hanging from crystal towers, fountains that sang, streets filled with laughter and echoing music. They began telling stories of failure and triumph, of heartbreak and mended spirits, of a heartbeat that taught them to feel. And though they still calculated the dance of distant galaxies, they now understood that the true measure of existence was not in flawless equations, but in the imperfect, radiant warmth shared between two beings standing together against the cold. We humans moved on eventually, to new frontiers and distant moons. But we left behind a legacy far greater than steel or data. We left warmth. And in that warmth, the Arvex found redemption, at last learning that to live a single day in joy was worth more than an eternity of unfeeling perfection.